Everybody, you are in for a treat today because you are about to learn from Dr. Ron Stotts all about how to breathe, how to be curious, how to be present. And through that, unlocking a level of leadership, a level of consciousness unlike any other. Dr. Ron has been in this space for 50 plus years. He is the coach of coaches. It's truly an honor to have him with us for today. So, without any further ado, let's hop right on into the episode with Dr. Ron Stotts of Ron Stotts International. But you just said that you feel that your only job in life is to breathe, be curious, be present.
It comes down to that. If I'm doing that, then I'm in the best state of mind and have the agility to handle really whatever is coming into my life from the best perspective. And yeah,
Wow. Where did that originally come from? This mindset that it is all back down to breathe, be curious, be present.
50 years of journey. Yeah, it really, breathing has always been a part of my healing journey. And as I've evolved, I really have gotten to the place where that is all there is to do or all there is to be. Because if I'm doing that, then whatever's coming into my life, whatever challenge, opportunity, task, then I'm in the state of consciousness that I can best access the response or answers that I need to handle it with as much ease and wisdom
Wow.
as I can.
Well, that is a lot of wisdom. For me, or I think for a lot of people from the outside, it's tough to believe that through breathing, curiosity, and just being present, you can have not the motivation, but you can have the tools needed to move forward versus just saying, hey, you need this strategy and this strategy and this strategy, right? What's sort of the balance between those two things?
Well, most of my clients who come to me have a very well developed left brain. They were rewarded with love and acceptance, and when they were a child, that got them into the right schools, that got them the right job. But oftentimes, when they're coming to me, they're feeling like something, that glass ceiling or whatever, is holding them
Mm.
down. And inevitably, what we discover is they keep trying outer solutions and blaming other people and all of that. It always comes down to an inner challenge, an inner limitation that, when recognized and healed, allows them to very comfortably move into and evolve into whatever's next for themselves. Whether that's a higher position or making more money or having more impact or whatever it is that they're focused on in their life.
Wow. So what's the first step towards transforming into becoming a conscious leader?
Well, the first one is, unfortunately, for most people, they have to be in some sort of pain or suffering, or they have to get to a place where things aren't working. That's not necessary, but that's usually, we're not willing to look at change until we get to that place. And once they get to a place where they realize, I've got a challenge that is just taking up too much energy, I can't get through it, and they're finally ready to reach out. They've doubled down on what worked before. They try harder, a lot of effort and force and that type of thing. But at some point, they say, "Okay, this is not working," and that's when they
Mm.
give me a call, and I help them recognize where they do need to go, what they do need to do or become, and that allows them to be more vulnerable and open to looking deeper into themselves, because the answer is always the same. They have to become more self-aware and emotionally intelligent so that they can bring out the best of who and what they are, so that they can then bring out the best in others and create the dynamic teams and organizations that are going to be more productive and profitable.
Well, interesting to hear you say that it always boils down to somewhat the same thing, that you have to become more self-aware and open and vulnerable, more emotionally intelligent, before you can move forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge I see in leadership today is that they're looking outside for solutions that can only be found within.
Um, Leaders are looking outside towards to find solutions that can only be found within.
Yeah. So
Wow,
I happen to
so
be
so
really good
true.
at guiding people within. So that that's my goal is to create a more conscious and caring world, and leaders have this really can have a huge impact not only on an organizational but societal level. So if I can create more conscious leaders who are not only enhancing their own life, because it certainly creates a better home life also, then they start caring about others, bringing out the best in others, recognizing it's in cooperation and collaboration that they're actually going to find that success that they're truly looking for. And I see them increasing their productivity and profits by, at least 40%, but oftentimes even by 100%. And I'm talking seriously large organizations that are doing that. So yeah.
Wow. Ron, where do you typically start with these executives, right? So they come to you, they've hit this glass ceiling. And what you're saying, right, is when you develop more consciousness, when you look more towards the inside,
Yeah. All right.
sorry,
Yeah.
you disappeared for a second.
Right.
All good. Let me rewind for a moment. So I'm curious about where you start with a lot of these executives, right? So they come to you, they've hit this glass ceiling, they finally know there is a problem. What you just mentioned is that consciousness can impact every piece of your life. Where do you start with them instead of just saying, like, hey, this is going to help you everywhere, which can be tough to measure, it can be tough to grasp?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think the first, and for most people, the most important thing is you congratulate them on what they've been doing, what they've accomplished, and who they are. And I truly mean that. Oftentimes their childhood issues that they're at the effect of. But when they were a child, if they would have come to me, I would have said, yeah, keep doing that. That's the best way to survive. That's the best way to take care of yourself. That's thing that's sabotaging you now is actually taking care of you then. But they've come to rely on those old tools, and they do become what sabotages them in their life. They grew up as a child looking for love outside of themselves, which was perfectly normal and healthy. But as they continue to look for love outside of themselves, for acceptance or recognition or whatever, that ends up really deteriorating and limiting their life. They have to really take a moment in their life to go within themselves and learn to fully accept and love themselves so that all of their outer actions are relevant to being a confident and authentic person rather than a person who's running their programs or organizations with ego and trying to prove stuff or be stuff or hide stuff or
Mhm.
whatever the variations that we do.
Yeah, so true. Do individuals have to hit this ceiling before going to look for help? How can somebody realize to make change now before drastic change has to happen?
Desire, you can do it out of fear and concern, or you can do it out of, I really want to take my life and leadership up to the next level. I've done really well. I'm very successful, but I'm feeling like, okay, there's indicators that I'm a little stuck. So, and I want to become more aware. I want to be more successful. I want to make more money. I want to have a better family. I want to create a
Mhm.
more conscious organization that supports everybody involved, including who we buy from and sell to and all of that. So desire can draw us forward, but pain definitely is what kicks us in the butt, most of the time.
Yeah, people more typically will be motivated to move away from pain than towards pleasure and desire.
And that's just because they don't feel worthy. They don't feel there's that little part of them that doesn't feel worthy or conscious enough. Think in terms of consciousness. My level of consciousness, which really just means how aware I am of what I'm thinking about, how aware I am of my feelings, my emotions, and how conscious I am of where I am at any given moment. what's my perspective at any given moment. And so the level of consciousness determines how I see, how I experience, and how I react to literally everything that comes into my life. And so if I run into something that I'm having a challenge with, all I have to do is move into a higher state of consciousness and the answer will be there. And of course, to be able to do that, you have to learn to breathe and neurologically rewire your brain so that you have access to higher levels of thinking. But once you do that, then you become that leader who can really, with a great deal of ease, really handle whatever's coming into your life, you know.
Wow. Wow. Ron, let's take two steps back. A lot of times when I speak to experts like yourself, I think it can feel a little unattainable, right? Because you have so much experience. Where did you start your career before you started on this sort of path and journey?
Well, I think that was what really was the most beneficial thing for me. I was a national rowing champion and, kind of the all-American kid at 19 and had this beautiful young high school sweetheart, so I was like, okay, I got this. This is going to be good.
Wow.
And, the Vietnam War was going. And so I kind of followed my father's footsteps. He had been in World War II. And so I went in the Marine Corps thinking that was just the thing to do. And very shortly, I realized that was not the thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
And that I'd made a giant mistake, that the Marine Corps was not another sporting event, that it was, I was out on the rifle range one morning and they had been throwing up targets and I was shooting at them, becoming an expert shooter. And that was another
Mm-hmm.
sporting event, another accomplishment kind of thing. Well, one morning they threw up a human silhouette. And in my little 19-year-old mind, I realized, oh, what I'm becoming good at is killing people. And that was
Sure.
just the antithesis of who I was. I didn't even, that was a moment of recognizing I was a conscious, anxious objector, never having even conceived that growing up in the woods in the Northwest and all of that. So that moment really changed my life because the Marine Corps doesn't handle those kinds of decisions and recognitions very well. They like you to be.
Mm.
So it was in getting out of the Marine Corps, I kind of had to look at my life completely differently because up until that time, I had just sort of followed what I had been taught and become who society thought I should be. And I felt really good about it and I was okay with it. But I realized, no, this is not my values. This is not my belief system. This is other people's input on me. So I had
Mm.
to really restructure my entire life. And it was the going against everything. And I became suicidal and I did try and commit suicide. And in that moment, I had an experience that gave me a sense of the oneness of the universe, the perfection of the universe. And so from that moment, that was my moment of, okay, so, this sounds a little odd, but the truth is I either had to go forward or I was going to, probably commit suicide. And so I highly motivated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my journey became one of, okay, how do I heal this chemical imbalance due to PTSD? How do I, you know, discover who I am, what my values are, who I want to be, and create the life that's going to be fulfilling and rewarding to me. And
Wow. Wow. I mean, so from yeah, you'd say I think you were that, that high school, I won't say prodigy is maybe not the correct word, but checking all the boxes. Life is going to be great, amazing. Following footsteps into the Marines where things weren't as amazing. And you said you started to suffer from PTSD and you were suicidal. I mean, what is it that pulled you out of that darkness?
well, there wasn't somebody like me around at that point because we didn't know a lot of what
No.
I know now.
Sure.
So, I found somebody who taught me how to breathe, and that got me in touch with my feelings. I learned about meditation, and that taught me how to breathe into a quieter place that gave me some control over my mind. I was teaching at college level, and I was developing learning centers and colleges and that kind of thing. And people were going, well, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And it was all intuitive. So I went back
Mm.
and got a PhD, and, it was intentionally or was intended to be, how do we think? How do we learn? How do we grow? And it really turned into who are we? What can we become? What are our capabilities? What are our potentials? And so that took me into being co-director of a brain integration center where I had access to the best of the best in terms of people helping others and coaching and learning and psychology and all of that. And I didn't have much money, and they were coming to me or coming to us going, well, we want to learn what you're doing so we can integrate in what we're doing. So you come and learn, take our teacher training programs, and then we'll co-create with what you're doing. So there I was in my mid-20s getting, these, amazing learning opportunities. The programs were probably only about $5,000 or something, but back in that point, $5,000 was more money than I could, put together for
Yeah.
that. So I just had this opportunity of learning with and from the best. I mean, I don't know whether people's know these names anymore, but Buckminster Fuller, he was a thought leader, back in that time, and he became one of my mentors, and Joseph Campbell, became a
Oh,
very close mentor of mine. And so I was learning from these amazing people. I'm talking about walking in the woods and meditating and having conversations with, incredible people. And I kept learning, I kept growing, I kept becoming and letting go of, and healing. And it was pretty dark sometimes, but it was also pretty exciting. And at some point, people started coming to me to, could you help me with this? Could you help me get through that? And so, I ended up with a PhD in transformational psychology and also a doctor of chiropractic. And I got into the whole mind, body, spirit thing back in the 60s and 70s. And so I've continued to learn and grow and breathe and become.
wow. Wow. The biggest thing that sticks out to me here, Ron, is truly the power of learning,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You think today's day and age, like learning is seen too much as just formal education versus a lifelong pursuit?
Yeah, it's focused on left brain logical thinking, and that leaves out the right brain. And if you leave out the right brain that has a bigger perspective, bigger picture, more spontaneous, that keeps your mind really noisy because your emotional backlog from childhood is what 90% of your subconscious thought is going to be, formulated from. Excuse me.
Oh.
So, you have to heal that emotional backlog. You have to go back and heal that inner
Mm.
child and really reintegrate and become an authentic whole person so that you can quiet your mind so that that forebrain can take over its rightful role of conscious CEO from the amygdala, which is the emotional center. And as that conscious CEO comes into play, then it's looking at things from a different perspective than the more dramatic, traumatic amygdala. And it looks at it from what's best for everybody. It's a much more herd mentality than a predator mentality. And you start really just, you begin to have more self-care and empathy and compassion for others, and developing programs and things that transform people's lives in ways that they couldn't have ever imagined them being transformed. And the reward of
Mm.
being, part of that is so rewarding that you end up doing it for 50 years. So,
Yeah, I love it. I mean, this is the path that I am putting myself on as well. So I'm
mhm,
fortunate that I have the belief and understanding that what people refer to as soft skills are much more important and valuable than these hard, logical, technical skills also, right?
definitely.
What do you think is a big blind spot, right? What's one common blind spot that's actually holding back a lot of high achieving executives these days?
Well, the big blind spot is fear. I
Fear.
mean, they're living their life from a place of fear. They're living their life from a place of I'm not enough. They're living their, and they're using their ego to run their organizations, which doesn't allow them to be vulnerable and connected and empathetic with themselves and others. It disconnects, and you get that old top-down controlling model of leadership primarily. And I've got a fellow, he's got 5 9-figure businesses, and he worked with me. He's been around for a few years now working with me, but he just called me up and he's starting this entirely new business. And it's
Mm,
probably going to be bigger than all the others combined. And so he's flying me down, and I'm going to work with him for a couple of days. And all we're really going to be doing is preparing his mindset to move
mm.
into this level of play so that he can stay present enough to support everybody and create an amazing experience and product and make a lot of money.
Wow, wow. So when you fly down there, right, and you're getting ready, you're preparing his mindset to be in the correct space to help everybody else grow. Where are you all going to start, right? When you get down there, how does the whole process begin?
I'm gonna have a chat with him and kind of get caught up as to where he is and what this big plan looks like. And as I'm watching him, I'm going to notice when he quits breathing, when he gets uncertain, when he's uncomfortable, so that we can go a little deeper into those areas. I'm going to literally, I mean, this is a pretty advanced guy at this point. I mean, he really has moved up into the levels that my programs are really designed to take people into. And so we're going to meditate. And while we're meditating, I'm going to remind him of the different ways that he can shift gears so that he can deal with whatever comes up and continue to move forward in his meditation until he reaches a place of quiet. And in that place of quiet, he already knows, but he's going to really remember that that's the place that he can be most effective. It's the answers are in that silence, not in the noise that we try and struggle to discover it in. And so then he'll have what you euphemistically call a significant personal transformational experience. And that'll take about 5 or 6 hours. And then we'll have another chat and get everything cleaned up and make sure he's ready to go into this. He's going to be meeting with, I think, 45, 50 people, the next week. And he'll be in a place of power and confidence and comfort and with himself and others, and able to communicate in a way that really excites people and lets them see how valuable they are in relationship to what they're creating. That gets them all excited, and then they become more connected, and then they create these amazing things.
Wow. Wow, you're going to give him this significant personal transformational experience. And I like how you say that a lot of times the answers they come in the moments of silence, not in the moments of noise as well. I think that can be tough for people to grasp. I mean, I'm trying to think, can we put that in more basic ways, or is there an example that we can give to people to make them realize, slow down, quit running around. Your answers are actually right here in the silence.
And that's true. They are. They are. Uh, you know, think in terms of we're only aware of about 5, possibly 10% of our thoughts. And
Mm,
so, I've got a lot of friends in personal growth, and they sell products that really address that 5 or 10%. If you just do this, then you're going to be successful. If you just focus on this, if you just read this book or do all these things. And the truth is, those are good tools. But the
mm.
problem is that other 90% of our subconscious thoughts, if that's not been handled, if you haven't healed that, then it's going to just disregard whatever your big ideas are. It's going to sabotage them. It's going to undermine them within a couple of weeks. How many people have a New Year's resolution, or they were going to quit smoking, or they're not going to do this, or they're not going to do that. But they end up failing. And it's really only because that noisy mind of theirs is not safe having that quiet. And so the noisy mind is really the result of all of the saboteurs that they developed to protect themselves as a child. So they literally do not have access to the levels of thinking they need to lead on the levels that they're looking to lead on. You know, and the primal brain and the midbrain are are great, but it's this higher level of thinking mind, the cortex, the left and right brain, that really where we have our higher thoughts. And if you're in stress, if you've got a noisy mind, then that's communicating to your body, that you're in something's going on that's stressful. Usually people aren't breathing very fully, and that communicates to the whole system that we're in a fight or flight mode, relatively speaking. And so as they heal that past, as they become more confident and authentic, their mind gets quieter and they become more confident and authentic, and they gain access to higher levels of thinking. They develop integrated whole brain thinking. The more advanced folks, I have a 2-month and then a 9-month program significantly, but they get to a place where they access what I call big mind. And big mind is where you instead of trying and efforting and thinking about something, you literally quiet your mind and just put out what it is you're looking for and trust that it'll come in. For example, I still do it more on my own property now, but I had a company that designed and built Japanese gardens. I shouldn't say they had a company. I had me, and I had a bunch of guys who would do it. But it's a matter of. I remember I was working with a CEO in San Francisco, and he found out that I did that. We were working with my executive coaching, and he found out that I created Japanese gardens, and he went, "Oh, and he wanted one for his wife, and of course he wanted a bigger and better and $1 million one, literally." And I just didn't have time because of everything else that was going on. So I went I was living in Mill Valley at the time. I went on my hill in my backyard, and I sat and I thought about the people who I wanted to create this for, and my intention to really create a more conscious and supportive life for them, and that we wanted a 1-acre Japanese garden. And so as I sat there in the silence, I watched this vision of the garden come in, the 100-foot stream coming down the hillside into the large organically 60 by 50 pond with a turtle island and a bamboo forest at the other end and the meditation temple, and it just kept detailing out finally to the sound of the birds and movements of the grasses, and so in an hour and a half I have that all, and I went down the next morning and walked them through the territory and described it, and 3 months later it was done, and we won all kinds of international awards for design and technology, and
Wow.
and the truth is I can't even take credit for that because it's just coming through. That's what's available to anybody who gets a quiet enough mind and accesses that intention.
I wasn't expecting the biggest key or takeaway for me so far just to become more still and quiet. It sounds like the key is really quieting our minds.
That's where the wisdom is. Why not, why go down all these dead ends to find a subpar answer when you can quiet your mind and really access the best that's available, and in a much more fluid way. I mean, in this rapidly changing, ever more complex business world we're in, we don't have time to go, well, what did we do 3 years ago? And, let's do some research on this. You've got to come up with answers now. And you've got to be present and conscious enough and quiet enough in your mind to let those answers come in so that you're able to respond in those fluid, strategic ways.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Ron, a question that pops in my head quite often because I hear about having to deal with childhood traumas, right? Or these blockers that happen. How does someone know if they have these traumas in place that are holding them back? Where do they begin to figure that out?
Did you have parents?
Yes.
You've got them.
Yeah. Okay, so that's step one. You have them, but now how do we figure out what they are and which ones aren't serving us?
No, that's a matter of learning to breathe and look deeper within yourself. That's what the becoming more self-aware and emotionally conscious, is all about. You really, most people don't know that. Lots of times they'll have people do something called sentence completion so that they can look deeper. And so one of the things I'm afraid of is, and they go, nothing. No, but I'm always watching. Their eyes are always up, and they're always up in their head. They're not breathing. And I go, okay, well now take a breath and say that during with the exhale. So that, okay. Well, one thing I'm afraid of is, and all of a sudden something comes up, and
Yeah.
as they continue to breathe and go, more comes up. And so they're learning to circumvent what they've used most of their life to block those feelings to now access those feelings. As my mentor, Joseph Campbell, talked about, you've got to go into that cave within, that cave that you fear to enter to find the treasure that you seek. And of course, the treasure that you're seeking is you. The treasure you're seeking is that unconditional love that only you can give yourself. And once you open that cave and heal that emotional backlog and find that level of acceptance and love for yourself, your life completely has changed. Your relationships with your family strengthened because your connection with yourself, all of a sudden there's no disconnection within yourself. And so, that your relationship with yourself is mirrored in your relationships with others. So all of a sudden you're more connected with other people. You're able to be more vulnerable because you're more confident, and people go, oh, I can trust this person, and they'll share more of them. And then you're compassionate, and that makes them feel safer. And then all of a sudden those around you start feeling like they're part of something that's incredibly wonderful. And so they start cooperating with each other, and then they start collaborating, and then we're back to making more money.
Wow. Wow. I'm with you. I absolutely love it. And this exercise that you just mentioned of you're strategically asking these questions and you're help the completing sentence exercise, if you will, mixed with the breathing, right? Is that something that listeners could do on their own or with a partner as a good starting point to deeper explore their subconscious?
I think it's a tool that can be used. It's just not readily available out there. I mean, I was just, I'm not sure what I'm doing at my age doing this, but I was just hired by a national coaching organization to design and develop an entire transformational life coaching division in their more process-oriented, business-oriented coaching that they already do. And the reason they came to me is because one of their people, I was working with one of their people and one of their head coaches, and that person started using some of the tools that they had learned through our work together, and they were having incredible results within a very short time. I mean, I do a discovery call with somebody, for example, and a quote that I hear all the time is, I've seen more in 20 minutes than I saw in 20 years of therapy. And that's what it's all about is really learning how to go down and access and heal this stuff. And I mean, within 2 months is all it takes. It's not
Mm,
years of therapy, it's not years of all this, stuff that we're scared of and don't want to do and don't want to look at. It's really it becomes this incredible adventure of self-discovery and growing and empowerment that, like, I mean, within weeks, people who never thought they'd never be able to do this go, I see it. I see how it works. I know where in that excitement moves them forward into becoming who they're capable of being and creating the life that they're creating. So one of those people happened to be high up in the coaching, and she said, "Hey, everybody needs to know this stuff." And so now I've got a book put together and all these little things that I've spent putting together for 50 years. And yeah.
Oh, wow. There's few things honestly that excite me more than true personal development, right? Mental subconscious development. I'm very early on in my journey of learning about it. And so it's a pleasure to get to learn from you. And so, one of these coaches that you were helping that's in this bigger organization has now hired you to help develop this brand new program. Are there already exercises that you have out to the public or small introductory programs that people that are listening can use as a starting point?
I think if you go to my website, what is it? ronstotts.com. What is my name? And yeah, if you go to ronstotts.com, it's been a while since I've looked, to be honest with you, but there are several things that can really help somebody begin that inner journey. And they're business oriented, and the other is personal oriented. And I ask a lot of questions in my work, and that's really what those two formats are about. But there's also a myriad of other things on there, that would help. If they listen to YouTube things, you're going to get a lot of keys. You're going to get a lot of understanding what the tools are, and you can begin to practice those tools.
Mm, Great. Check out the website. You said, I mean, there's definitely lots of keys if you look on YouTube as well.
Yeah. And those things are free. I mean, so just go download them, and I'm not going to bother you. If you don't want to talk to me, that's
Perfect.
fine. If you want to talk to me, then get on a call with me. I love doing them, to be honest with you. And yeah, regardless of the outcome. And so, yeah.
Good to know, Ron. It's greatly appreciated. So let me ask you this question as we start to wrap up. Let's imagine we fast forward 75 years into the future. Someone picks up a book about legacy leaders, and you're in it. What do you hope the book's going to say about you?
Well, I've already helped thousands of people. I mean, I had centers in Switzerland and Europe and here. And so I've helped thousands of people, and that's nice. But that's not the impact that near the impact that I'd like to have. So I don't care whether the book says anything about me. I would just like the materials that I've developed that are so effective to be out there and being used by hundreds of coaches. I've been studying coaching because of this new opportunity. It's like, oh, well, what's going on out there? And I'm recognizing that it's just subpar. I'm not criticizing what other people are doing, but it's very subpar. It's more functional. How do you get through? It's like leaders are very good at playing whack-a-mole, solving immediate problems, but they're not able to sit back and look at the bigger game, so that most of those whack-a-mole things don't even come up. And that's true. It's just, how do you, all these people that are coaching are really doing their best. They're coming from their best intention. But you can only, I mean, I've had a lot of therapists come through my work, and they recognize, oh, I can't help somebody with this or that because I haven't healed that within myself. They just aren't on the level of consciousness where they can see those things. And so it's time to expand that out and support everybody in having that. So it's really not about me. It's just, supporting others with using the tools and benefit.
Sounds like supporting others, helping to actually reform the coaching industry is a big piece of what you want to do.
Yeah, I am doing that. I will do
It's
that.
it's what you are busy doing. And so is that what the legacies you want to leave behind? What does legacy even mean these days?
Well, I've got I've got two little boys that see me as grandpa, and And I want the world to be a better place for them. I'm going to be out of here before it gets too bad, although lately I'm not sure about that. But, it's a matter of legacy is creating a more conscious and caring world for everybody. So I mean, a lot of people with money think, oh, if I just isolate, then I'll be safe. And that's not true. You'd get disconnected and more frightened, and that then people attack, and it doesn't work. It's about connecting, it's about supporting, it's about really coming together and creating that conscious world. And I think leaders are the ones that can have that impact on a societal level. So since that happens to be my little thing that I'm actually extraordinarily good at, that's what I'm going to do. And hopefully the people that I train in this coaching program will then also be doing that. And we can get that 100th monkey, if you know what I mean by that, that leverage point where it becomes the norm, then we will have a better world.
I'm excited. I'm very excited, and I'm happy that you are here helping to make that change happen, to develop that better world, right? Let's go over that edge, the 100th monkey, and truly just make it the way that society should be, huh?
Well, and it's just a matter of it's time for us to evolve and access our true capability. That's the bottom line. We're playing in such a limited, frightened way that we don't even know what we're capable of. It's like access the levels of thinking that you're capable of so you can see your life from a whole different perspective. You can recognize, oh, this is what my life's about. And you become that piece of the puzzle that we need to create a clear and vivid picture of what we as a society, as a planet, are capable of.
That's some big picture thinking, and it all stems from getting pretty still and quiet, right? Making sure that we breathe, we're curious, and we're present. Ron, truly, thank you very, very much. I'm excited to go check out the website, go learn more. Hopefully, see what's going on with this new coaching program that you're developing, because you're a type of individual that I truly want to learn from and work to become more like. And so it's a pleasure.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, for listening to the full episode. You are now one step closer to becoming the true conscious leader that it takes to change the world. Dr. Ron is changing the world. There's no doubt in my mind. He even said it there factually at the end. I think I said the words that you're trying to do. He corrected me and said that he is doing. Some of my top takeaways that I wrote here as notes: the power of learning, right? Be a ever learner. He mentioned that our old tools actually become our present tense sabotages in our life. Right? He said if you had parents, then you have this baggage to get rid of, because it is oftentimes what we were taught as kids, the things that served us as kids, we still carry to today. We're adults now. We're no longer kids. We shouldn't act the same. Right? In a past interview, a guest told me about we were taught not to talk to strangers. How are you supposed to get to learn about anybody, learn anybody new, meet anybody new, network if you're not talking to strangers? What we were taught as kids today, those tools are today sabotaging us. And we need to rethink all of that. Last but not least, Dr. Ron talked a ton about becoming more vulnerable, more open, more self-aware, building our emotional intelligence. This is the way to becoming a more conscious, better leader and change maker. Everybody, thank you again for being here. Please go check out Dr. Ron. And then if you are looking for help around accountability to improve yourself mentally, physically, and financially, I invite you to come check us out over at journeytolegacy.org. We are a community of change makers helping each other to help make the world a better place and leave a lasting legacy. See you guys over at journeytolegacy.org. And until next time, my name is Wayne Veldsman. See you soon.